All right, my friends, we are on 7.5 and we're going to be talking about properties of logs, which is just like things you can do with logs. And they matter because we're about to start solving and we'll use some of these skills in solving. So today we're just going to focus on two verbs, expanding and condensing. So expanding is like taking them apart, or we're going to separate, and condensing is we're going to put them together and we're just going to make one log or ln. So there's three properties that we're going to focus on. One is called the product property. The names don't really matter that much, but it tells you what it is. It's saying if you have the log of some base of something times another thing, you can separate. So going this direction is how we expand. You can separate them into the log of the first thing plus the log of the second thing. They keep the same base. Whatever this base is, that stays the same. Later on, if we start with them separated by adding and we want to put them together by multiplication because that suits our needs, that's what we're going to call condense. So expanding and condensing are using the same three rules, just going the opposite direction. Here we have something that's divided by another. So that's called the quotient rule because of division. So if those two things are put together by division, we can expand them by, or separate them by using subtraction. And if they are separated by subtraction and we want to put them together, we can condense them by writing them as the first thing divided by the second. This last one isn't really separating as much as it's relocating this power. And so this is our power property. It's saying if you have a log of something to a power, the other place that can go is down in front. And when it is down in front, this is considered what you would have when you would done expanding. And then if you're trying to pack it all up and condense it, you move it back up into the power and it ends up at the top again. So let's use those three to do our expanding and condensing. And you want to have them in front of your face until you don't need them anymore. So in this first example, I have the log of x times y. You'll notice there's no base, which means it's a base 10. And if I look at my first property, it says if they're put together by multiplying, I can separate them by addition. So I simply rewrite this separately as the log of x plus the log of y. And that, my friends, is all I have to do. I'm not really doing any calculating. I'm just rewriting it, expanding it, writing it out. So here, in the second example, I have log base 2 of 5x, which is 5 times x. So since it's multiplication, I can split it up with addition. Since it was base 2, I write each thing as having a base 2. Here I have x divided by y, so I'm using my quotient property. They're together by division. I will separate or expand them using subtraction. Since it's log base 4, I'll use log base 4. It's the top, it's the top thing minus the bottom. So since the x is on top, I'll have that, and then I'll have log base 4 of y. Here I'm going to have a couple things happening, and so I got to slow down a little bit. This is 5 times x, both on the top, and then w times z, both on the bottom. But the w and the z are both on the bottom, so I'm dividing by both of them. So this one can get a little confusing. But what I'm going to do is stick with my log base 2. I'm going to have the log base 2 of 5. And then since the x is multiplied on the top, I'll write log base 2 of x. Now the next two are on the bottom, which means they were divided. So I'll have a minus in front of both of them. And then minus log base 2 of z. Now some kids think this last one should be a plus because these are multiplied by each other, but they're both on the bottom, which means they're being divided. So that's how I always think about it. If something's on the top, if something's on the top, I'm going to be having a plus sign in front of it, but if something's on the bottom, I'm going to have a minus. So you'll see I have a minus in front of the w and also the z. Here I can see that there's a power in the problem, so I'm going to use my power rule. And the other place it can go when I'm expanding it is to put it down in front. All right, here I have a couple things happening. So I have ln of y to the third. Since it's division, I'll separate it by subtracting. But I'm still not done expanding because this 3 can't stay up there. So when I'm fully expanded, I have the power down in front and then this. So when you're expanding, you do not want to leave a number up in that power. Okay, so this one's kind of a doozy. So let's do that. I'm going to get rid of this so I have room. I'm going to separate all of these. I'm going to separate all of these. Of course, my Apple Pen is low because they are put together first by multiplication. I'm going to separate them by addition, but you can also see that there's some powers hanging out in there that will have to be dropped down. So I'm going to have log base 4 of 2, and then separate that from log base 4 of x cubed by adding, because these are all multiplied, and then add log base 4 of y to the 1/5. But I'm expanding, which means all the powers have to go in front. So one more sweep through there. I have a 3 now in front of this log, and I have a 1/5 in front of this last one. So now it's properly expanded with all adding and sometimes subtracting, and any powers that were up above get dropped down in front. So this one again does not have a base indicated, which means that it is a implied base 10. So I don't have to write the 10 any more than they did. I just write log every time. So the x is on the top. It's multiplied by the y, but you can see the y has a square we'll have to take care of. And then since the w cube's on the bottom, it's getting divided, so the minus goes in front of that one. And then I take another run through it to drop powers since I'm expanding. So I have log x plus 2 log y minus 3 log w once it's fully expanded. So again, we aren't really solving or anything. We are just putting things together and taking them apart because that's a skill that we need for doing other stuff. Then here we're going to condense. We're doing the exact opposite. Keep in mind that in the previous problems when we were expanding, the last thing we did was drop any powers down. So here into the front of the log. So for example, here we had the 2 drop down and the 3 drop down. Since that was the last thing we did in expansion, getting rid of those numbers and putting them back up into the power will be the first thing we do in condensing if we have numbers out in front. At first, we don't. So here we're going to condense and end up with just 1 log in our answer. So since these are separated by adding, I look back at my options and it tells me I would put them together by multiplication. And you can put parentheses or whatever makes you happy. Here, it's all separated by addition. I do not have any numbers in front of my logs. So I'm just going to have log base 4 written 1 time, and the w is going to get multiplied by the y, which will get multiplied by the z. Now, often you won't see the dots. You'll just see yz. But it's certainly not wrong to write the dots. And it's also not wrong if you want to put some parentheses around there. So whatever makes you happy. Here I do not have numbers in front. I'm separated by subtraction, so I'm going to only have log base 10 written once. And then since it was separated by subtracting, I put them together by dividing, and I have to make sure that the first thing goes on top, and then the thing following the minus or subtraction sign goes on the bottom. Here I have a mixed bag. I have log base 2, and I'm only going to have that written once. I have a w. Since it's separated by addition, I put it together by multiplication. The next thing is separated by subtraction, so it'll go on the bottom, so the z goes on the bottom. Here, I finally have a number in front, and that has got to get out of the way. It has to simply say log of this, and in this case, minus log of this. And now I move that 2 up into the power using that last log property. Now that it's just log and log, I can put them together. And since I have subtraction, the first thing goes on top and the second thing onto the bottom. Here I have numbers again. So these all have to move up. And so this becomes log base 2 of w to the third minus log base 2 of x to the second for moving that up, plus log base 2 of y to the fourth for moving that number in front up. Now it's just log, log, log. I'm only going to write this once because I'm condensing. I have a w cubed. This next part follows the subtraction sign, so that means it's division and it goes on the bottom. And then the next part follows an addition sign, so it should be part of the multiplication or go onto the top. And so then that is my condensed version. So if you are condensing, make sure that your answer only has ln or log written one time. You should never have it written more than once. And then when you're expanding, you should have all of the logs separated out. So you'll see it repeated multiple times in each problem. So today's a skills day. It shouldn't be super complicated. Keep these out in front of you until you don't need to look at them anymore. Thanks, guys.